Welcome to Season 2 of Vision 2222, the podcast where we get into conversations with interesting people who have valuable insights and ask them to go out on a limb and imagine what the world will be like in the future. We talk with leaders from industry, science, engineering, and the humanities, not only about what's happening around us today, but also what we might see if we jumped ahead in time, 20, 50, 100, or 200 years. In the season's finale, we will combine all the learnings and discoveries into a vivid painting of the world circa 2222. Vision 2222 is the brainchild of co-hosts Mikhail Gladkik, Amanda Chady, and John Marsh.
Hi, I am Mikhail. I'm a technologist and a science fiction author. My professional career provides me with a unique perspective on the technologies of the future. I am working at the forefront of the fourth industrial revolution, advancing 3D printing, artificial intelligence, digital supply chain, and energy transition.
And I'm Amanda Chady, an entrepreneurial scientist mentoring startups in healthcare innovation and life sciences. And I advocate for ventures that are making positive changes towards a better future.
And I'm John Marsh. I've been working since 2008 as an administrator at a major research university in Houston, Texas, where I get a ringside seat to watch and support an amazing world of scientific and engineering innovation.
Welcome to the new episode of Vision 2222 podcast, and it is my pleasure to introduce today our guest speaker, Carol Morrow. Carol is a learning and development expert, currently a director of corporate solutions at Corporate Education Group. She has over 40 years experience in the field, helping growing talent in all industries and professions. Carol background, she used to hold executive positions in many different and diverse companies such as Eastern Airlines, Electronic Data Systems, Advanced Consulting, and International Institute for Learning, and now with Corporate Education Group. So it is my pleasure. Carol, welcome. I'm sure it will be a very fun and interesting conversation. We are talking about talent development, people side of things, how it is linked to innovation, and how do we cultivate talent and all the things adjacent to that. So thank you very much for finding time to participate in our podcast, Carol.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction, and thanks for having me.
Carol, I'm happy actually to get this conversation started. So let's jump in by looking at the Corporate Education Group, or CEG. The description of the Corporate Education Group states that our more than 30 years of experience rooted in corporate training enables us to engage in collaborative partnerships and taught us that there's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to optimizing performance. So the CEG also has a strategic alliance with Duke University Management Training, and you offer premier certificate programs. So first, I would like to hear more about the mission of CEG and how is it different from other management and leadership consulting organization. And a second part of this question is more about telling us your story. What led you to CEG? What's your role there? And in general, what are your passions?
Okay, thank you for those questions, Amanda. So CEG is a learning organization. We provide corporate training and development we work with companies and we work with government agencies as well, both federal and state. And we focus on solutions based upon our clients' desired outcomes. For example, we have some assessments that we can do to gauge the competencies in certain areas. We focus on project management, business analysis, management and leadership, DE&I, and Lean Six Sigma and process improvement. So with that portfolio of solutions, we work very closely with our clients to determine what their needs are, what their pain points are, and then we tailor our solutions to fulfill their desired outcomes. And I think that's what is unique about Corporate Education Group, in that we listen to understand, and we focus, as I said, on the solution that will satisfy the requirements and help our clients move forward and develop their people so that they're more effective and they enjoy their workplace. And in the DE&I space, for example, we focus on building skills to make sure that people are allies for one another, and that they treat everyone, all their fellow employees and their customers, with fairness and with kindness. So we're very focused on what our clients need, and like I said, we listen to understand. That's our main differentiator. My role, so I came to CEG about 8 years ago. I was with International Institute for Learning, which is another learning and development organization. So I've been in the learning development space for about 20 years. Prior to that, I was in information technology, and I was a senior leader with electronic data systems, managing big IT departments, and that was very fulfilling. However, I went into learning and development because I enjoy working with people, and I enjoy seeing the success of all of the people that I interface with in providing these learning solutions. So my passion is seeing people succeed. In fact, I'm a guardian ad litem for children that are in need too, and that's outside of my job at Corporate Education Group. And I do it because I want to help children grow and become very valuable people in society, and feel secure and loved, and are able, so that they're able to move forward successfully.
Awesome.
So that's a great passion. Thank you for sharing that, Carol. I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you mentioned about determining your pain points and solutions for your clients. Can you just paint a really picture of how someone will come to you and say, hey, I have a problem with XYZ. This is what we're going to do. Do you see like people coming to you with similar pain points, or is it very diverse?
Very diverse, but typically, because we have, 3 different types of clients. We have clients that have been with us for a long time, and they know who we are and what services we provide. So we work with those clients and expand our services, and depending on what their situation is at the time, and through discussions and just our relationship. Then we have the brand new client who we're providing maybe a one-off solution. Maybe we're doing a project management certificate program. And then, we will work with that client to provide that particular course and let their people earn a credential. But then we will work with them as a partner to expand, talk to them more about what they need, and then expand our services that way. And then we have the customer that doesn't know they need us yet, and then we will reach out to them and let them know what we provide. We have a lot of free webinars that we provide each month, and we'll publish those, and we'll work to market our services that way. So those customers then will see what we offer, and you find that they would like us to come and partner with them to provide solutions in whatever area they need that we provide.
Got it. And in general, these services are more like leadership development, or do they just want some extra skill sets, or is it more like looking to see what's needed on a team, what's missing if you're developing talent, or is it all of the above?
It's all of the above, really, because we have learning journeys that we offer in women in leadership. We have inclusive leadership. We have emerging leadership programs. And then we have all the DE&I programs, which a lot of organizations now are focused on DE&I and equity, and so on. So, our customers will ask us to fill gaps that they have, because sometimes they provide these trainings or the coaching or consulting internally, and then sometimes they ask us to provide. And so we do both. We'll work with you to help you provide your own internal trainings and coaching and consulting, or we'll do it all for you. It just depends on the organization and what their desire is as far as in developing their employees.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I mentioned,
Great.
we do assessments also. We'll do a project management assessment. That will assess the competencies in project management. We'll do leadership assessments and business analysis assessments. So we have a few assessments that will help the client understand what they need.
Got it. So working in any company, it can be like a small startup, a small business, or a large corporation, has seen a lot of changes in the working environment in the last 30 years or so, right? For example, there's now increased access to employees because of mobile, internet, and since the COVID pandemic, you have more and more workers with options for virtual work. And there's even bigger flexibility, bigger emphasis on flexibility and family life. So we have seen and observed a lot of changes in corporate culture, even in the last decade. So I would like to hear your thoughts about what trends in the social sphere do you see in the next 5 years, especially about trends in building relationships and human interactions in a corporate setting? What does the future of human interactions and relationships look like? And if you can talk a little bit more about if there are any implications on selling products and services, which is obviously what corporate culture is about. You want to sell things. So what are your thoughts on that?
Going back a couple of years when the pandemic started, everything was in person. People came into an office, they worked, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 pretty much. And then all of the training and development and coaching and consulting was all in person for the most part. Then, as a result of the pandemic, and people had to stay in and stay away from people, whether that was right or wrong, that's kind of what happened. So then everything became more virtual. So we've learned over the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years now, to make the virtual environment more interactive and connect with people effectively in a virtual environment. However, in my opinion, it's not the end all, because even though people work in a hybrid situation now, sometimes they come to the office, sometimes they work remotely, that human interaction, that face-to-face human interaction, is still very important for building relationships. And the positive thing about the virtual platforms that we have, like Zoom, where we can see each other on video, that's very good, but nothing really takes the place of the face-to-face interaction and seeing someone and touching someone. And so we're finding now that the trend is, with our clients, is doing more face-to-face learning. The only real exception to that is when their employees are so geographically just dispersed that it doesn't make sense to bring everybody into one location for a training or an event. But they still do that more often now than they had been doing in the past few years. So I think the human interaction in person is going to continue to be important. I hope I answered your question in that regard. But
yeah. And you can obviously, you've seen the basic decrease, right, over the years in human interactions. About 50 years ago, a lot of people were in the office more and, doing things. And now with Zoom, and then you add in the pandemic, everything sort of switched virtually. And I just wanted to just hear a little bit more, I guess, on your thoughts about why do you think the human interaction face-to-face is important? Is there just, just actually seeing the person, facial expressions a little clearer, or just in a room together brings more community feeling?
Well,
Builds it better than online?
I think that's true. The community feeling and seeing one another, but the body language there. When you meet with someone face to face, and you get a certain aspect of their relationship that you don't receive virtually so much, because again, your body language, you're able to shake hands with them, you're able to see just see how they respond from their their facial expressions and their body language and all that. And in a classroom environment, which is 90% of our environments, you see how they respond to what the facilitator is saying and what their fellow participants and learners are saying and doing. There's just, you don't get that in a virtual environment. You do to a degree with the cameras on, but sometimes people don't want to turn their cameras on. And also, as a facilitator, for example, you can't really look at everybody on your computer screen, because there may be 20 people that you have to interface with, where when you're in a classroom environment face to face, you're interfacing with everybody, and everybody's interfacing with each other. So I think that's an important aspect of learning and of relationships, that human interaction.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carol.
I have a follow-up question, Carol. Do you see artificial intelligence disrupting the field of training and learning and development? What is happening with AI? And how do you see this trend evolving into the future?
See, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not an expert on AI, and I'm looking at it to see how it will impact the learning and development industry, but I don't know enough about it yet to tell you. From my gut feeling is that still that human interaction is going to be important. And through AI, you can practice certain things. Like, for example, if you take a class in Excel, and through AI, you can learn Excel, but more, that tool. But when you really want to learn something that's more subjective, then you really need that human interaction, I think. I don't know if AI is going to be a positive contributor to that aspect of learning.
So what you're saying is in some instances, in some areas where subjective experience is important and interaction with other people, the AI will not be able to represent that accurately or simulate other people's behavior.
I don't think it will. But I'm not an expert on AI at all.
Right.
But
no, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, what I foresee, for example, is in the future, as all the information about you as a trainee is available, and like from the big data management perspective, everything is somewhere and available for an AI system, and that AI system could create a personalized curriculum for specific areas of development, just targeted for you and the way you learn and understand the topics, and maybe even create a virtual environment targeted for you and immerse you in that environment, and that way facilitate the training. But as you said, there is no human interaction there. That might be the missing point.
So I feel that would that human interaction is still going to be important. So
and one thing to note, Carol, it's you're training an individual, but you're also training that individual to work in a team, right? A corporate culture. So you have to understand that, yes, you are giving this individual skill sets or helping them accomplish what they need to, but they still need to apply that on a team environment, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So
and
that's,
we are humans, so we need to interact with one another, and we need to learn how to do that effectively.
unless you're training somebody who's supposed to be an astronaut and go to a long mission to visit another star alone, and maybe accompanied by different types of AI and robots and whatever, and then
Right, yeah.
then it might be applicable.
Yes, if you want to train someone to be totally autonomous, then that's different. But people aren't usually effective in that kind of a situation. I would not want to see the human race go into that kind of a situation where we don't need and leverage and interface with other humans, because we thrive on that, I think. We thrive on having relationships with other people and learning from other people. So
it's our nature.
Yeah, I think
having
it is.
Evolved to it.
We're social animals.
Yeah.
I think we are. Just like, so I'll use my chickens. I have 10 chickens and they're very social little creatures. So they need one another. They interface with they interact with one another, and they interact with me, and they need that, and in order to thrive, and I need that too, so I think
Your
that
flock.
we are like that. Yeah, they're my flock, and they care for each other. They need each other.
Well, moving on to a slightly different angle on the whole aspect of training and developing oneself, the ability to identify one's talent is very important for success and happiness in general. Being able to help different individuals discover their various talents leads to increasing diversity and advancement of the human race. Do you think the trend going into the future is increased specialization, so narrowed skill sets, or do you think people will expand their horizons, become more multidisciplinary? How do we need to change our talent development to approach that, for that to happen?
So I think that the trend will be that people will expand their talent and their competencies to be more than what they are today. In other words, I think that people will learn more about more things, and they will be more diverse rather than just focused on one or two skills and competencies. So I think that we'll be able to see ourselves expand our knowledge and expand how we apply that knowledge to our work life and our personal life.
To me, that seems intuitive because I'm sort of a generalist. But on the other hand, sometimes the topic areas that we're required to master require so much time to master that it becomes kind of a challenge to broaden. I think I have a kind of an example that may be surprising. I sing in a church choir, and I've noticed that a church organist, for example, to be very, very good, to say earn a doctorate in performance, requires so much focus and practice that some who are very classically trained don't really get the notion of swing or blues or jazz. They can listen to it and appreciate it, but trying to just merge over into a little bit of the more popular or traditional folk and jazz is a big leap for them. And so there's just one example. How do we manage, as we are required to get a particular set of expertise, to reach out more broadly to perhaps develop other talents that we hadn't initially planned to develop?
I like that example. I play the piano as an example, and I'm certainly not a concert pianist, and that's not my profession, but I do enjoy it. So therefore, I'm good enough to do different types of music, to play the piano and classical versus jazz versus some rock and roll. So, but I'm not an expert. So, but you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you can still learn about a lot of different topics without and be an expert in a few, but not necessarily an expert in everything, but still contribute in a positive way and learn, different things, different topics and be good at it, but not, necessarily an expert in everything, because you don't have to be an expert in everything, because there's no way to be an expert in everything, but you could still learn more things. And I think that we will be able to, as, society develops, and AI is contributing to this as well, that we will be able to learn about more things, and be more diverse in our whole, life and our whole being and our thought process. So I think that it would be remiss to say that we're only going to be focused on one or two things. So
well, and I can also give you counter examples of, say, in science, for example, science and engineering, for example, a lot of the biggest breakthroughs come from people who have at least reached out to people with other areas of expertise. They have to become at least conversant in another area in order to do that. And that does, in very clear and measurable ways, improve well, I hate to say productivity, because scientists don't necessarily like that word, but it does increase the amount of breakthroughs that they can come up with. But looking into your role as a development person, a teacher, how to develop talent, what's the difference between teaching in general and talent development? Do you need to identify first what constitutes a person's set of talents and what needs to be developed? What are the roles of the teacher or the coach and the person being coached?
So that I'll use an example. If you are an individual contributor right now in your role at work, and you want to now become an effective leader, not only, for your project team, but you want to move up and become a manager or a supervisor, and then move up from there and lead others.
Yes.
You may not, you don't have any exposure to that necessarily right now as an individual contributor, but you see how others in that role behave and what their skills are. So that's one way to learn. And then the role of the teacher is to help you understand what skills and competencies you need in order to be more effective as a leader. Then the coach will work with you to say, okay, John, you need to communicate effectively, and to give me some examples of where you have applied communication skills and how that worked out, because a coach is really taking what you've learned and then helping you apply it. And then, of course, you as the person being coached, your responsibility is to actually learn, listen, learn, and apply what you're learning, and then communicate effectively with your coach to tell them what's going on. What have you applied this competency? Have you hit any roadblocks? Have you had some successes? What's happening? And you have to be honest with that person if you're going to be open to let them help you. So there's a lot of difference between an instructor or a teacher and a coach.
Yes. Yeah, the way you've explained that, it makes perfect sense. Well, when do you start as a person who needs to develop, or as the coach? I mean, do you go all the way back to preschool, or do we focus on what each child is good at and kind of guide them toward those things, or do we give children complete freedom to experiment and find their groove or their grooves? What is the role of the teacher in that process? And how does early development define or put boundaries around future professional growth?
So, children in starting, from the time that they are born and that they see you and can interact with you, they learn. They're in learning mode constantly because they absorb so much. And I think that we should teach them things, but we also need to let children have the freedom to experiment and to, focus on things that they enjoy. I mean, I have horses, right? So my two granddaughters love horses and they want to learn how to ride and all of that. Well, is that because they've been around horses since they were born, or is that because they had that, desire inside them? You have to let things develop, with children, let things come out and let them be focused on what they enjoy. But still, you have to guide them. You have to teach them things too.
Right. Yeah. They had the opportunity. You weren't necessarily pushing them in that direction, but of course, what kid isn't going to be interested in horses, right?
Well, especially, yeah. And I have found, especially little girls, but yeah, kids like horses and they like, if they're around them, they learn to like them. But, if you have a child that has never been around them, like one of my guardian clients, as a guardian ad litem, one of the little girls found out that I had horses. And so now she wants to come over and visit my horses. She's never really been around them. She's seen them on television. She's seen them in books, but now she wants to, her biggest desire now is to come and visit my horses and pet them. And because she's never done that. So you have to let children definitely expand their knowledge and focus on the things that they want to focus on and they enjoy and desire, but still have to teach them stuff. So
yes. Why is it, and this doesn't have anything to do with this podcast, but why is it that there seems to be such a strong affinity between girls and horses?
Well,
that appears to be stronger than between it almost seems like there's an innate draw there where it isn't quite as innate with boys, or is that just a cultural prejudice?
So I think some of it is a cultural prejudice, but so I've had horses all my life. And I've been around, I learned how to ride when I was 5 years old and I've been around them. And then I've had my own since I was 13. So I loved them right away. And I think it's because little girls have always been somewhat protected for the most part. It's just a cultural thing. And then when you're around a horse, I mean, you're taking care of and riding an animal that weighs 1,200 pounds. Yeah. And it loves you and you love it. And horses have this personality usually that they're very social and they want to be with you. And so I think the little girls feel a strength in the horses that maybe little boys, already have in a different way. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And my daughter actually started horseback riding lessons a couple of months ago, and the instructor is very good with sort of matching the personality of the child with the personality of the horse. And she has one, her name is Shala. And, she's always talking about how Shala is such a good horse. And so I can see where, we are talking about the personality of the horse and how it's so important as well. But she loves her horseback riding classes.
Oh, yes. It's horses. I have seen horses care for people, children with disabilities, physical disabilities. Right. They will thrive in interfacing and riding and interacting with horses. It's just an amazing thing that happens when you're around a horse.
It's a recognized therapy.
It is
avenue. It is. We have the only reason I know about it is that my son's Boy Scout troop did a project for one of those places that specializes in exactly that, having people with disabilities, particularly children, be able to get up on a horse and tailor the interaction to the abilities of the individual, but give the patient, if you will, as much freedom with the horse as is practical, and that interaction is quite therapeutic for them. It's quite amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. I've seen it and participated in it, and it's just an amazing thing. And horses are amazing creatures, and we're so fortunate to have them, in our life. So, and anybody is.
Sorry for taking us on that far down that pathway. I should
No, it's
and the
one of
conversation.
my favorite topics.
This is great. This is great. And yeah, thank you, Carol, for your perspective. I'd like to broaden the horizon here, from where we are today, from talent development, from everything we talked about, and look beyond, look into the future, broader. What important trends do you see in society today that change us as humans? What else could be on the horizon, and what fascinates you of those trends, and maybe new innovations and new products, new solutions? Can you look into that future and imagine where would we be as humans in 50 years, 100 years, or in 200 years by the year 2022? Will humanity even survive that long?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as humanity being able to survive that long, I think that the trends that I see in society today, the internet and social media has changed us so much, I think. And I don't know that it's a positive change, but I'm hoping that what I see on the horizon is that we will be more in tune to our individualism and interacting in person with people, and not focusing so much on the internet and social media. I think that if we get back to being humans and interfacing in person with each other, I think that will be better for us. And that part of human interactivity fascinates me, because I love working with people and talking to people and being friends and having a relationship with all kinds of people. And I think that the future will be better if we let go a little bit of the social media and the internet, and we focus more on being humans, and taking care of ourselves in such a way that we do take care of the environment and take care of animals as well. Animals are very important to our well-being. Many studies have been done on the positive effect of having an animal in your life. So I just think we need to be more personal, and I hope that will happen.
So you see this social media rise of today is being more of a transitory phenomenon, and in the future people will understand that they need each other. They need, as you said, the animals, and it's absolutely critical to have these types of interactions with each other, not just writing something on the wall and then collect likes.
Yes, I think that is very important to our abilities to survive the next 200 years. So
interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Carol. I think this is a very important observation and something that we maybe don't think about and don't see. But yeah, I can see how this could be very relevant to our survival, being a community, being human beings.
Yeah.
It makes me a little afraid, though, because it sort of makes it seem like the negative of that could be that people, or at least some major proportion of our population, doesn't see that need or doesn't act on it and continues down the pathway of increased virtual interaction, kind of neglecting the real human needs. I don't want to be too bleak, but it does seem like it may take a very conscious choice of a lot of people to make a change in a more favorable direction.
I agree. And I think it's, part of it is going to be up to us, those of us who feel that way, to, help people to understand how important that interaction is, that personal interaction. And, our children, for example, guide them along the the path to be more in person rather than online. So
Yeah.
I don't my grandchildren, my son is grown, but my grandchildren, we try to steer them away. Certainly they're online, but a little bit, but we just try to steer them away from that.
Right.
And I hope that other people do as well. So
Yeah.
And one thing I want to just ask to Carol is with just in general behavior changes, right? Because when I was younger, there was no text messaging. So if you had to talk to someone, you give someone a phone call or you meet them up. But fast forward to today, I text more than I call people, right? So just because the text messaging system is fast, you can get it, but I've seen people say, hey, you should just pick up the phone and call and talk to the person. And then I'll be like, nah, I'll just send a text, right? So you see these things where I didn't have, texting growing up, but right now as a behavior change, I prefer texting over actually making a phone call. And I just, it's just, I try to wrap my head around it, because there wasn't texting, 25 years ago. We had to pick up the phone and talk. So these type of behavioral changes.
It is hard because we didn't have smartphones either back then. So now we have the smartphone. Now we can text each other, and I do the same thing. I do, Amanda. And I remember when email. Remember when email, at work started, and you send an email. But even today, yeah, email is great and texting is great, but there comes a time when you just need to pick up the phone and speak to the person because, or go see the person, or because the words that you write are not necessarily being communicated effectively. You may believe what you're writing is what you're trying to communicate, but the other person, the receiving end of that, they could be interpreting it totally differently. So it's important to interact. It's important to pick up the phone and call, even if if you're in a hurry, because that's what happens. We're always in a hurry. And so we text, but or email, and we just don't take the time to speak to one another. And I think we should do more of that.
And to your previous point, Carol, this is yes, important to talk, and it will add to the interaction. But to your previous point, actually being in the room with each other and seeing each other and having all the full interaction it adds so much. I think.
Yes.
What are the numbers? Like 10% of the conversation is words, another 10% is maybe tone of voice, and the rest is body language.
Right.
Non-verbal cues, right? And when we text, it's just 10%. If we talk, you add a little bit more, but it's definitely not enough. Human face-to-face interaction becomes so critical.
It's so important. It's so important.
And maybe in the future, if we think about the future and all these trends, I'm thinking, natural selection can take care of things eventually. if this is critical for human development and future growth, then maybe some of the trends that take us in the wrong direction, natural selection will take care of that.
Well, you might have said that without personal interaction, there will be no reproduction. But even that, there's another thing that AI represents that's not intelligent. It's something.
It's not entirely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's become
mail
impossible.
order,
Yeah. And then I'm thinking also from this perspective of interaction, I think we talked about it in one of the previous episodes. If you could imagine like Internet of Minds, where you are connected on the conscious level with variety of people, and you could identify with them, you could understand what they're thinking, their emotions, their state of mind. Today it's difficult to imagine. Think in the future it could be. And would that potentially replace the interaction face to face? No, you don't think so?
No, I do not see that happening, because we need the human touch. And just like a child, when a child is born, if you have a child that does not experience the human touch, that child will not thrive. And there have been studies done on that topic. And we need the human touch. We need to interact personally.
Oh, this is very, very insightful, Carol. Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking an imaginary trip into the future with us, with the previous topics. The last question we have is kind of even broadens horizons even further. Do you think the actual time travel is possible? If yes, is it only forward, only backward, or both ways? And the second part of the question, if you had just one and only chance for one trip, either back or forward in time, where would you go and why?
So I think that anything is possible. Time travel certainly is possible, I think. I don't know how it would be possible, but I can't give you the solution, but I do think it's possible. And if time travel is possible and does happen, I think it will go both ways. But as far as me, I would go forward because I want to see what's in the future.
How far?
I would probably go forward 50 years.
50 years.
Yeah.
And you're curious about what will happen, how the life will be, maybe meeting your grown-up grandkids, right?
Yep. Yeah, I would like to see what they've done and with their life and also their children, if they have them.
Right.
Right. Thank you, Carol.
Well, this has been an unexpected treat. I didn't know what to expect, but it's great to be able to talk about so much of the human aspects of what we're going through as a society, because we so often concentrate on the technical, meaning the information technology, the science and engineering that will enable us to survive, we hope, in the future, maybe thrive. But we haven't spent as much time on the human aspects of it, which, after all, are at the center of what we do. Mm-hmm. I think that this has been a great opportunity to explore that with someone who has a great deal of experience. I love the fact that you're able to bring in the early child development and the aspect of children and grandchildren. It's been a very rewarding conversation. What are some of the things that you would like to leave our listeners with? A couple of perhaps central points to our discussion that you think are especially important.
So I think number one, interact with your family, your friends, and your coworkers, colleagues. Interact with them in person or talk to them at least. Don't rely always on the internet or texting or email. Don't rely on that 100% of the time. At least take time to talk to them and to interact with them and hug each other. And the other thing that I would say is always focus on learning. Focus on what you can learn moving forward every day, And I think that's very important for human development altogether.
Oh, thank you. How would people get additional information about you and your work and perhaps get in touch with you?
So certainly call or email me. I'm happy to provide my email address, cmorrow@corpedgroup.com. And Super. My telephone number is 978-649-8250.
Fantastic. And just to go find your corporate website, it's tell us again the URL for that?
corpedgroup.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us on this call and this conversation.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, all of you. I really enjoyed it. I was a little nervous at first thinking about doing it, but I'm really pleasantly surprised at how well it went.
I told you we're going to have fun.
And indeed, we did have fun. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vision 2222. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Our YouTube channel is called Vision 2222 Podcast, all one word. We're also on Podbean at vision2222podcast.podbean.com. Again, Vision 2222 Podcast is all one word. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vision 2222. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Please also comment, and we'll do our best to respond.